Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Punch Up Pod with Lila and Pat. Happy Wednesday. Pat, how are you today, my friend?
It's been lovely here in Sacramento, exotic
Yeah,
vacation destination, Sacramento,
a
where
cool balmy
it's
breeze.
a cool, balmy 100 to 109 degrees all week.
Jeez, I'm sorry.
We
That's
got a little break
horrible.
today. It's like high 90s.
How's your AC holding up?
Excellent. And the cocktails,
Keep them
they
coming.
actually are fantastic this week. Normally, we sort of chintz out on the cocktails and kind of end up making a poor man's version of the drink and whatnot. It's so hot, and this drink sounded so good that I actually muddled raspberries.
I wish we had that on video.
I did some serious bartendering over here, and I couldn't be
Okay.
happier about it.
It looks delicious. Mine is a kind of slapdash one, but it's, vodka and pink stuff. Um, but it is delicious. I cannot wait for the day. Here's my bougie side coming when we actually get to film at a bar with a bartender pouring us bottomless drinks.
We are going to do this. It's going to happen.
It's gotta happen. It's the
Now
whole
that the
point.
pandemic's over, just get right to
Oh,
it.
yeah.
But I will be
Yeah,
coming down at the end of the summer. We have this planned.
we do have a plan.
We
We're
don't have
gonna
a date
have
locked in yet,
but we're gonna do live show together down here in LA and get some work done together, which will be really fun.
on a
Yeah,
secret project, by the
on
way.
a secret project, top
Let's tease
secret.
them.
We could tell you, but then we'd have to kill you.
Patreon Plus members already know.
JK, there's no grift here. Yeah, speaking of the pandemic being over, I think I probably mentioned it last week, but my brother-in-law, my husband Josh's younger brother, is in Pennsylvania right now, in Philadelphia at UPenn's hospital, and he just had brain surgery last night. Josh told me that he was the only person in the whole hospital wearing a mask. I am just floored by that. I can't even, I honestly, the only person wearing a mask, not the doctors, not the staff, not the other patient. I cannot believe it. I honestly, I'm just completely gobsmacked by this whole thing.
To me, it's one thing if people are just flat out over it, but how did we get right to not in hospitals? It's
Don't wash your hands.
absurd.
Yeah, just
Like,
everybody, don't wipe your
I don't
ass,
even have
don't
any,
wash your hands, don't mask. Who cares? Just germs. Let it all fly around.
hospital. We should have been masking in hospitals this whole time,
Yeah.
regardless of the
I mean,
pandemic. Come on,
it's
everybody
awful.
knows you get diseases in hospitals. They're floating around like crazy because people are at the hospitals with the diseases. It's common fucking sense.
Absolutely. And if they're not spreading a disease, they're there because they are somehow more vulnerable, probably, right? Yeah. In contrast, I have to say, I went and took my older son to get a shoulder surgery consultation at a place where presumably, I mean, of course, people could be sick there, but they are not. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right, Kim. They're raw dogging a level 3 biohazard. It's insane. But nobody there is necessarily immunocompromised or sick. It's all for people who've, broken bones or have muscle issues or whatever, right? It's the whole clinic. It's 4 stories. Every single person was wearing a KN95 or better. And that was in California at a place where, it is a medical facility, but not with,
Right.
It's different from being at a hospital where people are, sick, they have cancer, they're recovering from surgery, whatever. So that did make me really happy about where we are, but come on.
That just shows you it's just the leadership of the people at that one clinic, because they're probably under a lot of pressure to remove that.
I'm sure they are. Yeah. Anyway, so that's a tale of two cities.
And we glossed over it, but where is it? Where was it? You should have been in the Breakfast Club.
Who? Me?
You.
I wish, but why?
I mean, back in your acting career. You know, you belong. You look like
Man,
you could have been one of those characters.
I wish so bad. Someone in the chat needs to be my new manager. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to slip the bartender some punch up. I'm trying to find everybody's different chats. Hello, everyone. I'm a little scattered today. I was joking with Pat that even though I haven't officially ever had COVID, I've never tested positive for it. I'm kind of convinced that I had it in November 2019. I think my brother came here from New York and brought it to me. I was the sickest I'd ever been. But since then, I tested quite a bit. If I've ever had the sniffles, whatever, PCR, everything, never had it. But I must be an asymptomatic carrier because I have the worst brain fog I've ever had. So it's either
I was born with brain fog. So
yeah, exactly. No, but it's worse for me. Like I cannot even function some days. We were trying to talk before the show and I couldn't get a sentence out with a thought. It's the craziest time. Maybe it's just age. Anyway.
And I'm just speaking for myself, but you know, I drive around with he might be watching, so I'm gonna call him. Well, anyway, my entire day is with my boss.
Right.
And I'm not socializing as much. So my language is probably slipping a little bit, I'll be honest, you know.
I mean, it does when you're out of practice, it kind of does. Like, you know, I used to speak French and Italian fluently. I lived in Italy, but I've been away now for such a long time. I can understand it really well, but I cannot come up with the words I want to come up with. And when I first had my kids and I was sort of like, you know, stuck at home all day long with two babies, I certainly felt my ability to communicate diminish because there were very few people who cared about what I said. It was mostly just bring me the milk and change my diapers. So my vocabulary definitely dwindled. But okay, what do you think? We got a lot to get to. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, I think we should get to it. Let's do it.
Lots of funny comments. It is. I'm sure it is. Okay, we have let them eat COVID. I don't even know how to say that fast enough. So shut the fuck up and vote harder. Balls and strikes from Russia with love and global norming, and lots of timeline cleanses and lots of shots. Let's see.
Yeah, baby.
You know, normally we do this, you know, where we start with the numbers about COVID and then talk about all the repercussions of COVID. These are the numbers on COVID. What was this? I can't get close enough. May 7th, there were 1,146 deaths on that day in the US. And that was the last time our world and data collected data on deaths. Because after May 7th, it's all zeros. It's just over.
We're just guessing. But it does come back to, you know, very Trump world is one.
Oh, they rule the world. We are doing Trump's whole philosophy. Trump says if we stop testing right now, we'd have very few cases of the coronavirus. That was June 15th, 2021. It took Biden a little bit longer to come to that realization, but he just wrapped it up neatly. They shut everything down in a way that Trump could have only dreamed of. I mean, do you remember when we were talking about Ron DeSantis down in Florida and there was that one woman, I can't remember her name, but she was a data scientist. And I think she was fired for trying to continue to report the numbers in Florida. Now she's a total shitlip. I mean, she probably always was, but like, you know, back then it was like, wow, look at her. She's fighting against Ron DeSantis and the Trumpian, you know, approach to COVID. And now everybody just has a Trumpian approach to COVID.
Right. And I mean, just looking back through history, remember Cuomo being the hero that was on TV as
My God.
the sober response to Trump. And then as soon as Biden wins, they just drop all that. We go right to the death ticker disappeared overnight. There was no daily death ticker, gone.
But the crazy thing was, even when Trump was still in power, we knew that Cuomo had basically sent 10,000 elderly people to their grave by like striking a deal with assisted care homes that they had indemnity, but they also had to take in people who were positive with COVID. So it just spread like wildfire. He didn't put
he never got any blowback from that, really.
He wrote a book. He wrote a book about how he handled the COVID crisis.
To a lot of these people.
It's amazing. It just, there is no ideology in any of this. But anyway, the big story I feel like this week is how hard they are pushing that COVID is over, right? So we had this New York Times, David Leonard piece about how COVID is finally over after 3 horrific years in which COVID has killed more than 1 million Americans and transformed parts of daily life. The virus has turned into an ordinary illness. The pandemic really is over. That's in the New York Times. It's just so vile.
Look, we just showed that they're not really counting the death totals anymore. Like that's the reality. But death totals are just one fraction of it. It doesn't mean that it's not harming people.
Yeah. I mean, look at that. We have 34,000? No way. Thousands of, no, 34 million. Right. I was going to say, I was like, wait, I wouldn't put that up there if it were 34,000. 34 million. You got to add 3 more zeros because that's in the thousands. People who are suffering a disability with long COVID, they are not talking about it. They're just,
and as his article, Leonhard,
I say Leonard, but I have no idea.
Leonard,
he doesn't deserve our pronouncing it properly.
Is this a Szechuan chicken situation? The name, anyway. His article. Look, you have this triumphant article where you're addressing. It's the mission accomplished moment. They're trying to. It's really over, guys. It's really, really over.
Right.
But how can you be taken seriously? He didn't mention long COVID in the article. He doesn't get into long COVID at all. Like, how do you have an all-encompassing article?
Evolution, long COVID, cases, testing, or wastewater. I mean, sure, it's over. I'm 5'10" and I weigh 105 pounds. Like, I guess we can just say anything. Like, who cares?
Yeah, and this is the New York Times. This is like
the paper of record. It is so vile, the level of duplicity to get to this point. So Gregory Travis is, he's always right on top of it. He is taking this from the CDC and I think the US data, but I can't read it because I don't have my glasses on. But so these are deaths per month on average out of 100,000 people. So what they did, I know we all know this, but what Leonard does is he's like, so now deaths are pretty much where they always were, the excess deaths. But what he doesn't say is that he's going back for the last 5 years, which includes the first 2 years of COVID. So the first 2 years of COVID, when sometimes we had 30,000 people dying in a day, that's now being put into the baseline. So now the truth is there were 69.37 deaths per month on average out of every 100,000 people in the 2 decades between 1999 and 2019. From 2010 to 2019, it was 69.64. So there was a chunk that it went up. 2015 to 2019, it went up even a little bit more, 71.58 out of 100,000 deaths per month.
Right. So essentially that's 10 more average deaths per month per 100,000 people that were just, that's just the way it is now. And that's us back to normal. 10 more deaths.
per 100,000. So like that's way more. I mean, they are still right now. If you were lucky enough, and I've seen some people in the comments say this, it's so difficult to find any data. They do wastewater, but even wastewater is kind of a guesstimate because obviously you're not doing individual people, right? But 600 people are dying every day when you find the sources that are actually pulling from states' death records. And I think only 32 states are actually reporting. So that's even just 600 deaths a day. I mean, imagine if there were mass shooters doing 600, killing 600 people a day, we would be outraged, right? Like, and we're just completely silent on it.
And I mean, what we're truly being silent on this, the most despicable to me is that you're exposing kids to this thing over and over again when we don't know the long-term effects of it. We know it's doing a lot of organ damage. We know it's not leaving some people's bodies at all. It's staying and living in your body. And those kind of diseases tend to pop up like shingles does from, people get shingles from chicken pox when they're an adult. Stress, because it's attaches to your nervous system. And so we just don't know. We know it can get into your brain. We know all these things that are potentially bad. What we do know is the more you're exposed to it, the worse off you are. And we're not doing anything to stop kids from getting exposed to this thing 3-4 times a year. And
that's right.
Saying it's over is literally the opposite of trying to curtail exposure.
Right. But these sort of paid minimizers, like this guy, who's another one, Dr. Bob Wachter, thanks for the huge outpouring of kindness. I just ignore the other foolishness, people who are concerned about COVID, I guess. Go figure. I finally got COVID and it was number 5 on my ER problem list. FYI, I'm on the mend, done with Paxlovid, still testing, stitches out soon, neck brace for 6 weeks. Overall, I feel very fortunate. He goes on to say that he's not going to wear masks indoors anymore anyway, and he's fine. He says it's number 5, but it's what having COVID was the underlying condition that gave him a fever, made him so sick that when he tried to take a shower, he was dizzy and fell. And that was because of COVID. Wachter finally got COVID, fainted with a traumatic injury after a shower, and went to the ER for surgery, but said he won't be modifying his behavior after this. I mean, they are bringing out all the big guns to really try to convince people that you should just lie back and enjoy it.
And they're still, people are convinced, well, if I get sick, I'll just get Paxlovid. That's the first thing. People that know a little bit, that they know Paxlovid. Most people don't even know. I mean, I'd say about half the people know about Paxlovid, but the ones that do know, they think, well, it's no problem. I'll just get it. It'll whip me right up into shape. And everybody doesn't respond to Paxlovid. Paxlovid isn't perfect. Paxlovid doesn't eliminate COVID from your body. It doesn't keep you from getting long COVID.
Right. Yeah, no, it's horrible.
You can't, a lot of people just flat can't get it. It's privileged to be able to assume you can get it because a lot of people are not getting it when they need it.
100%. And I think I read that he had 2 courses of Paxlovid. But just in case you didn't see, the Israeli delegation who has just descended on the US recently, many of them have COVID. And right now, the White House says COVID testing protocols are still in place. So they're telling everybody COVID's over, get back to work. But in order to spend any time in the White House, you have to test. Of course, they clean the air. I mean, they are having a different experience. They are taking it seriously. This I saw last week, which is amazing. There's a company called Event Scan. How wild would it be if the rich CEOs of these companies and these government officials were getting everyone PCR tested before their big corporate parties, screening all their guests beforehand, and taking COVID very seriously while telling you it's safe to go back to work? So those are just a few of their clients: the White House, UPS, Pepsi, Samsung, MasterCard. Happy clients include the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, the White House, the U.S. Department of Justice, SpaceX, Chevron, Red Bull, MasterCard, UPS, Pepsi, Samsung, JW Marriott. I mean, the list goes on and on. So when you're seeing photos of maskless rich people partying. This is what you're not seeing. They've all tested beforehand and screened their guests using multiple layers of protection. They're not taking any chances with this virus because they know it's very serious. If this is what it takes to make a maskless indoor event safe, why aren't regular people able to access these tools? Why are we supposed to work, live, shop, and eat in unventilated buildings and pretend the pandemic is over while the rich get safety? The only thing I would add to that, though, is that even with all those precautions, when they're maskless, every one of these events still ends up leading to an outbreak every single time.
Yeah, you should absolutely still mask. It's still
Right.
like the clearest, most obvious way to reduce spread of an airborne virus.
Yeah.
But they're going even further. I mean, so you've got these elites, they're doing all this testing, and look at the flip side of that. You got places like In-N-Out saying their employees can no longer mask.
I think you have to have a doctor's note. Can you imagine?
Yeah, you need a doctor's note. Now, they couldn't do this in California. California is the state that's exempt because we actually have, better
OSHA protection, or
protections than most.
Yeah.
So that would be illegal in California. But I mean, can you imagine not being allowed to mask? Like, and you're going into work and you're like, hey, I know Jimmy's been sick for the last 2 months. Dave is coughing every second. Half the customers come in and cough in my face, and you're not allowed to wear a mask.
I mean, I don't know how else. It is social murder. I mean, you're like murdering people, because then those people go home and they spread it. I just saw today, and we pulled so many graphics, we didn't have enough room for it, but Staten Island Ferry pretty much shutting down. Everyone's called in sick. So if you are commuting to or from Staten Island, there might be a ferry, but probably not. Concerts, that seems like an enormous super spreader that people aren't really talking about. But there's a whole run on Taylor Swift. Like, her concerts are leading to mass outbreaks, and people even write about it afterwards, or they'll say like, got sick at the Taylor Swift one, but I'm still going to go, but I'm going to go to the next one tomorrow. Like, they get in a bunch. So Madonna is, so
we are
many
really
concerts.
in a bizarre world where you've got all this happening, and you just brought up Taylor Swift. It just reminds me that the president was out bragging about doing stuff to lower ticket surcharges, which is all from the Taylor Swift thing.
Right.
So instead of addressing the actual COVID that's going around at all these concerts and everyone's getting it, we're going to do something about those little $7.
We're going to knock off a little bit of a fee there. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
That's why we want.
Yeah. It is pretty insane right now. The gaslighting is crazy. I will say that's really fascinating to me, and I know we talked about it a little bit last week, that I thought that billionaires or the CEO, elite class, whatever, were protecting themselves. I'm shocked by how many of them, like, hoarding all the resources, and climate catastrophes are going to happen, and they're just going to go to their bunkers and, in their mind, survive climate catastrophes, disease, a nuclear war, whatever. But like, the guy who made that submarine that exploded, and he cut corners, he is a big billionaire, he went into it and died on it. Like, they are not as smart as I thought they were. They're going to these events maskless and getting COVID repeatedly.
I mean, if Elon Musk owning Twitter hasn't shown you that billionaires can be fucking idiots. I mean, I'm not saying he has a low IQ. He's probably got a fairly high IQ, but common sense and,
I just thought they had self-preservation. Like, I thought they at least were going to take care of themselves. Not that I think that they're like smarter than other people, kinder, better on any level. I just thought at least there was like a like looking out for numero.
You would think.
Yeah.
But he's probably surrounded by guys who think like him, because he only hired people that are going to suck up to him. So he's not getting challenged. And he did get challenged. I'm talking about the sub guy. He did get challenged by one of his engineers who he quit or was fired, so there's no dissenting views. So their arrogance, these people, like, he thought he was a genius for all these cutting corners stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been good. Yeah. The mask has been taken off. I can't imagine anybody still thinks that he's going to Batman in and save the world, which used to be the thing. Like he was going to invent some way to, stop global warming or something. But yeah, Elon Musk will not save us.
Remember his tunnel idea with the cars?
Oh my God! Yeah.
Well, it turns out that idea was never intended to happen at all.
No.
They pushed that idea to try to stop the trains from
mass transit,
California from creating mass transit across, because it would hurt his car sales.
Yep.
That's the only reason he pushed that thing. It was never going to happen.
The super loop or whatever, which was, as you said, just a tunnel. Yeah.
A tunnel in a car. What could go wrong with that? Yeah. Everybody could see right away what could go wrong with that.
Right. And by the way, like already been invented. So like nothing new there.
Yeah. So at best, I mean, billionaires are clever and evil. So they have no morality stopping them from finding the easiest path to more money.
Yeah.
That's it.
But again, I just thought that they were at least going to preserve their own health and lives, but clearly it's not. But, we read a few weeks ago that apparently COVID does something to people's brain to make them more reckless and more prone to open themselves to reinfection. And that's like hardwired into the virus and how it affects your brain.
And I fully believe that's happening. I mean, I see it I talk about my boss, but I know my boss has had COVID several times and he doesn't think he does.
No.
But he's a worse driver. He puts himself in risk. Everything has gotten worse from him. He's just, I hope he's not watching, but he's,
I know, I hope so too.
He's awful.
Oh, geez. Well,
never mind.
I hope. All right. I think we covered that sad topic, and I know we'll still have it again for next week, but put on those masks for goodness sakes. All right. Should we spin?
Yeah, let's go back to the wheel. What do we got?
Let's go back to our wheel.
Yeah, baby.
That's more like it. That is more like it. I already pre-gamed pretty hard. I'm feeling this. I am feeling it. All right. Shot number 1.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Now it feels like
cracked a tooth. Excellent. Now it's gonna be a good shot. Yeah, here we go.
Oh, I hope you didn't.
Yeah, baby.
Okay, that's a good way to start. Let's go. Pat, I'm leaving it to you today.
You're leaving it to me? Timeline cleanse.
Start with the first one.
Sure. Here's
I apologize if there was any confusion. I am an AI language model developed by OpenAI called ChatGPT. I am here to provide information, answer questions, engage in conversations, and assist.
Whoa, hey, whoa, a robot. Wait. No.
That's probably how we should deal with all of the AI that's happening right now.
Look, AI it's inevitable, but it's going to be used as an excuse. It already is to cut staff in so many places, and we got to fight it as hard as we can. Like, try not to use the automatic tellers, when you check out.
That's right.
Try do everything you can to keep people employed, because the businesses aren't. They're just going to make more money off of it. And when you get to a point where you can have a physical robot for the price of half the salary you'd pay an employee for the year.
Oh yeah, and
that's a
no breaks,
tipping point in employment for a lot of jobs. We're pretty much there already.
We really are. We're going to get to it with, and there were 2 ways to go with that, right? Like we could have used AI and, industrialization to make our lives better and make us have to work fewer hours in less grueling conditions, right? That's the way it should have been headed if we had any morality or humanity inside of ourselves or the CEOs. But instead, they're using it to just crush people and destroy their lives. So I know we're going to get to it a little bit when we talk about union stuff and what's happening with SAG, but because also well, we'll get to it with the union stuff, but they can take over every single aspect of what most of us do. So, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, baby.
Okay. I kind of want to talk about this because I feel like, Kimmy, I agree. I mean, I know everybody's doing the chat GPT and stuff. I wonder if it's an opportunity to force teachers and students to engage on a different level. I don't know. Not if we don't pay them, though. All right. Cheers.
Look, there's a lot of good that can come from AI in theory. Like just the fact that it can replace a lot of menial or just not fun stuff like routine work,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
But
I mean,
what's the benefit? The only benefit is to the employee, to the business. Like it's not helping you and I.
right.
Our show's not getting any help from AI. Should.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's where like a universal basic income comes in. But the only person who sort of proposed it on a wide scale level where it got some response was Andrew Yang. And it felt very much like he was doing it just in order, again, to find a different way of taking away benefits from people, taking away their Social Security. It's like you're just going to have to live on this one fixed amount every month. I don't think it was coming from like a socialist kind of way where if everyone just had a living wage or money coming into them, then yes, those robots could take over. The CEOs would still be fabulously wealthy and regular people could have more time for their families and life and enjoying the time, our short time here. But yeah, that's never the way it goes, is it?
Right. And I mean, we know inevitably this is going to happen. And what is the plan? Like, what is the plan to ease people out of 40-hour work weeks into maybe 30-hour work weeks for the same pay, something like that? But those are not capitalist solutions because capitalist solutions are always immediate reward for the company. What's the immediate reward? For
How do we make our shareholders richer? Yeah.
Right. And so we won't get the benefits. The benefits will mean, oh, well, now you can work 50 hours because you only have to pay attention 80% of the time or something.
Right. Yeah. All right. Let's
Yeah, baby.
Okay, so I'm going to ask for your forgiveness ahead of time just because I'm not always great at this, but this is what has everybody so riled up. There's an article in The Hill. Was it today or yesterday? Sorry, I need to get to the very top of it here.
It was yesterday.
I was trying to make it big. Yeah, okay, a couple days ago. Half of Americans say democracy is not working well in the U.S. Only about a tenth of Americans say that democracy is working very well, according to a new poll from the Associated Press and Nork Center for Public Affairs. A majority of Americans said that U.S. politics poorly reflects their values. 53% of respondents said that Congress is doing a bad job of upholding democratic values, compared to just 16% who said they're doing a good job. Americans also showed little faith, here we go, in the two major parties. 47% of respondents said the Democratic Party is doing a bad job of upholding democracy, while 56% said the same for Republicans. I don't think either of them is doing a good job just because of the state of the economy. Inflation is killing us. Michael Brown, a conservative who responded to the poll, told the AP. Right now, I'm making as much as I ever have, and I'm struggling as much as I ever have. They're fighting over something. It has nothing to do with the economy, Brown said. Hunter Biden, what does that have to do with us? He asked. Many Americans also don't feel represented by government interests. About 6 in 10 Republicans and 4 in 10 Democrats said that people like them are not represented well. The sentiment also carries over to specific issues with stark partisan divides on what policy issues survey respondents said align with public opinion. Nearly 80% of Republicans said that government spending does not align with public opinion, with just 54% of Democrats agreeing. I just wanted to find the part about 40% of Americans approve of President Biden's performance as commander-in-chief so far, according to polling released Wednesday. The rate did not move from June to July. But what this doesn't say, I thought we had it in there, and sorry, I can't find it, is I think 45% of Democrats right now say that they would vote for a third party.
And that's why we're getting all this pushback and propaganda, because they know more than any election before in my lifetime, we're primed for a third party.
Yeah. And we have two historically unpopular candidates that nobody wants running for re-election who will probably up against each other. So people are looking for a third option, which is why they keep bringing Cornel West on. At first, I was so shocked that they keep bringing Cornel West on to corporate, left-leaning media, but it's so they can treat him like this.
Party with their hundreds of $million flowing already are fundamentally focused on what I'm concerned about, which is the plight of poor and working people trying to come to terms with the cop cities, the critiques of the cop cities, trying to come to terms with striking workers, be they in Hollywood, be they in Amazon, be they at UPS, coming to terms with the eco side, with the fossil fuel companies, steel, corporate greed running out of control. We're at a moment now, my brother, where if we don't come to terms with this massive callousness and indifference to the plight of poor and working people, we're going to lose everything. The planet, democracy, qualitative relations with each other. That's how life and death, like our situation is, my brother, very much so. Nearly 40% of our precious citizens every 2 and 4 years decide not to vote at all. And we know that the so-called spoilers, which is a category you can imagine I don't accept at all, over 2/3 of those who vote, it could be a Gary Johnson, a Sister Jill Stein, Brother Ralph Nader, whoever, people say they would never vote for the two parties. And I can understand those two parties become too corrupt, their politicians are too conformist, too many of the politicians themselves are just cowardly, will just say anything. What about truth? What about justice? Truth and justice bigger than all of us, bigger than every party, every race, every person. If you're concerned about truth and justice, then you can't be cowardly, complacent, or conformist, and especially if you look at the world through the lens of those who are incarcerated, those who are in ghettos and hoods and barrios. Brother David Axelrod, he looks at the world through the lens of the establishment. Well, of course, from the lens of the establishment, he's concerned about reproducing the establishment. My God, my God. There's no doubt about that. In the 1850s, both parties supported slavery.
It's just amazing because when you continue on that, Anderson Cooper doesn't even ask him anything about the economy, healthcare, our endless wars, none of the issues that are truly affecting people. All he is waiting to do, and they have that huge graphic up there just showing that, Jill Stein's the reason. They still go back to Nader. I mean, the same people who say they miss George W. Bush are still blaming Nader for his election, even though we know that something like 200,000 Democrats in Florida voted for Bush over Gore, but they're going to blame the 90,000 or whatever who voted for Nader, right? I mean, it's unbelievable. This just keeps going.
Oh, I thought you were going to keep going with it.
Oh, sorry. I felt like you had to say something, so I stopped.
Oh, no. I mean, look, it's the game we all know. They put him on there. They're hoping two things. They're hoping that they can tell their audience that he's a spoiler and it's going to ruin things if you vote for this guy.
Right.
And then they're hoping he does something nutty and they can get him into some little position that they can have a soundbite to say how unelectable he is.
Exactly.
That's it.
Exactly. So then, and this is a really good compilation here, or a editing job that they did on Status Coup that I want to show. They bring on Mr. Carville, yeah.
A very charming man, and he's also a minister to the threat of the continued constitutional order in the United States. And I say that because look what Ralph Nader was directly responsible for the election of George W. Bush, which brought about this horrific Iraq war and this horrific economic downturn we had, among other things. Jill Stein, who's his campaign manager, is almost certainly an agent of the Russian government. If you don't believe me, somebody at home, Google photo, General Flynn, Vladimir Putin, Jill Stein. She was hosted by the Russians prior to her running in 2016. So, you know, people are going to have to decide, do we want to continue under our Constitution?
And of course, Anderson Cooper didn't challenge James Carville in defaming both Cornel West and Jill Stein. I actually asked Cornel West, do you have a response to James Carville saying you are a menacing threat to the constitutional order? Cornel West did get back. Here's what he said. Brother Carville should be ashamed of himself. Not one word of self-criticisms of his party, only scapegoating of those who reject his neoliberal friends. And he emailed it to me. So, you know, the emphasis is on my part. He's right. There is zero self-criticism, introspection on the part of the Democratic Party. And that is by design, because they want to continue to come up with narratives of deflection, distortion, and distraction, the triple Ds. They don't want to actually look inward and say, well, why are so many Democrats considering a third party candidate?
Yep, that is, they will never. And it's all just, you know, team blue, team red. We all know this, but I don't know how to break through to the people who watch that, because all they are right now is worried about Trump. And you should be worried about Trump. I think he's dangerous. I think Biden's dangerous. They're both horrific for this country, but nobody in the DNC is doing anything to try to prevent Trump from becoming president again. And that now they're talking about how Biden doesn't have, he's not, even his big donors aren't giving him money. Although this guy, Reid Hoffman, who's one of the most repellent people in the world, billionaire who visited Epstein Island, drops massive six-figure donation, $700,000 from LinkedIn co-founder Reid Hoffman. So, I mean, I don't know how many pedophiles you know. I know none that I know of. These people are like documented pedophiles.
Yeah.
They all cavort with, and that's where you're getting your money from.
Well, and you have to contrast Epstein Island and all the associations you can make to all of the worst people on the Democratic Party side for meeting and cavorting with these people. And yet Anderson Cooper doesn't challenge him on saying, you need to, if you don't believe me that Jill Stein's a Russian agent, Google, and you'll find a picture of her at dinner with, you know, it's a classic picture we've all seen of there's 15 people at the table having dinner. And that's the evidence they point to, which they don't show it. He doesn't say they had dinner together but they would just, if you don't trust me, Google it.
It's
like it's going to unearth this mountain of proof that she's a Russian agent. So that's basically libel. I mean, I would consider.
I agree. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they did that with Tulsi Gabbard, that she's working for, I mean, she's an active member of the military. She's deep in with Republicans. You know, what they never talk about also is Trump, with all of their pushing him and investigating him and saying he was a Putin's puppet and all that kind of stuff. You know, he's the one who started giving weapons to Ukraine that Obama said he didn't want to do, right? Like, he did that. He's the one who said, we're not going to let you guys go through with the Nord Stream pipeline. That was him. I mean, I think he's a moron. I think he is disgusting. He's a criminal. Yes, he's sort of cozied up to every dictator he could. But I mean, Biden does that too, just minus one. He's fine with all the dictators except for Putin, you know? So like this whole like smearing people and the innuendo and implying that they're Russian agents. Cause I mean, how much did Bill Clinton make giving speeches in Russia? $500,000 a speech, I think he was getting. Like, it is so, I mean, disingenuous is too light a word. It is just slimy tactics that people who cannot stand on their own record and talk about the policies they want to do for this country, for the working class, for the world. they will just always resort to this. And it doesn't matter that their side is the exact same thing. You know, all the liberals who show pictures of Trump with Epstein, you can show just as many pictures of Bill Clinton with Epstein, with, you know, Bill Gates and all, you know, like, so there's just no consistent ideology. And it's just like team tactics.
I think it's hilarious every time they card out Carville. I mean, they are really at a desperate point when they do that, because look, he is the epitome of an example of the duopoly. He's literally married to a Republican pundit. Like, they don't care about you at all. They are just employees of their two sides. It's like if I worked for the Raiders and my wife worked for the Niners, and we went home and we're like, oh, you're a Niner fan, I'm a Raider fan. You know, well, I helped the Raiders promote some sales. Oh, me too, with the Democrats. You know, they don't care. They're both working against us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I know at the beginning that was such like a love story, right? That they would talk about like how he and Mary Matlin or whatever were married, and they even made a movie about it with Gina Davis and somebody else. And even back then, I mean, it was just so vile, because I was a good liberal, and I couldn't imagine how he could be married to somebody on the other side. And it took a few years until I realized that they're on the same side.
Daniel, I'm with you. He used to be the guy who would come on, and when you don't know the whole game, you're like, yeah, he's talking shit about the Republicans. He's telling it like it is, you know. But then we all learn more. We all wake up.
Yeah. All right. Sorry, I'm just pouring another cocktail. But I think we do have some other stuff. Wait a second. What do we have? 2024. I mean, I don't know. Do we want to cart out the 2024? Oh, well, okay. This is the thing. You got to know, at least whatever happens, we're in good hands with Biden. Here's a couple of little moments that we should all enjoy.
Mr. President, thank you. At the end of such a momentous event, the word thank you seems kind of inadequate. But for all the millions whose lives will be saved, for the communities where life will be transformed, thank you. So thank you, President Biden, for your outstanding...
Thank you again.
That was last week.
Could you
at the end of the NATO summit.
Get him off here.
Just in case you thought that was just a blip, this was, I think, yesterday.
And we brought Israelis and Palestinians together at a political level, and Akwa and Paul Schramm. Yes. And as I affirmed the Prime Minister.
I mean,
Drifting.
He is a joke in the rest of the world. And the only people who report on that here, unfortunately, I don't like sharing Fox News clips, but like, you're never going to find that on corporate liberal media.
Yeah, but you know, these Fox viewers, they get a steady diet of actual shitty things that Biden does. So they're propagandized. Don't get me wrong. They're lied to about climate change, about COVID, about everything else. But they get to see, you know, Democrats don't get to see the bad stuff Biden does, and they don't get to see his brain falling apart and him.
They think anytime you bring up any criticism of him, you are just spouting Republican talking points. Just like if you ever talk about that, actually, Ukraine and NATO, whatever you want to say, poked the bear, pushed Russia. Of course, it's an illegal invasion, but it didn't happen out of the blue. If you ever talk about that, if you talk about the Nazis in Ukraine, you are literally spouting Putin's talking points, even though up until 2020, mainstream media was writing about the white supremacy problem in Ukraine, and also how they were cavorting with our own white supremacists and training them here. That Unite the Right, march or whatever the hell in, South Carolina, North Carolina, South Carolina. Sorry to anybody in the Carolinas that I've just confused them both. But
Charlottesville? I don't know.
Charlottesville is, yeah, it was. But which state is that in, Pat? Is that SC or NC?
North Carolina.
Okay, thank you.
North Carolina.
Yeah, but some of them had trained with Azov Battalion, right? Some of the insurrectionists on January 6th had trained there. You know, so like it's, I don't know, this whole idea that like anytime you critique anybody on your side or not on your side or whatever, you're only doing it. You know, it's like the African American socialists. They only have complaints about racism in the US apparently because they're Putin puppets. That's the allegation. You know, I mean, it's like Charlottesville, Virginia.
Not the history.
It was Virginia. Thank you.
Sorry, block that user, whoever said that. You're wrong.
Thank you.
I wanted to say something.
Yeah.
So look, even on the issue that we're not supposed to address Biden's cognitive function, right? That's the whole, no one on the left should talk about that.
Right.
All the pundits telling you not to talk about it, they were talking about it before he became the guy they were stuck with.
100%.
They were addressing it because they didn't think on any level that he would come out of the primary ahead.
That's right. Yeah.
So it was okay to talk about until he became the clear nominee.
And then they erased it all. No, you're absolutely right. And I know we've shown it and everybody's seen it, but like the compilation of all the people, I mean, Julian Castro, Cory Booker, I mean, like even people who were running for the nomination talked about it. The pundits talked about it. And the same people who say you can't be an armchair, you know, psychiatrist or doctor or whatever, which fine, I agree. But like they all did it for Trump for 4 years. Remember Amendment 25? And like a psychologist would say, I've never dealt with him in person, but I could tell just fine. I agree. He is, I mean, you know, a narcissist. And yeah.
The body language expert on Bernie was okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all just once, you know, and obviously everybody, you know, who watches the show, I know everybody gets it, but like once you see it, all of it just feels like such a sham and nobody is actually fighting for any of us, which is why it's really upsetting for them to see someone who keeps coming back to his policies and how he wants to change things, which is Cornel West. And they really don't know how to deal with that because that is not how the DNC or the Republican Party work. All right. What do you think? Yeah.
Well, and they know that the public is in alignment with all the policies that Colonel West is pushing.
100%.
And so he doesn't have a wacky history of anything. Now he's very churchy and spoken and my brother and stuff like that, but you can't look back and say, well, he thinks 3D signals or, you know, 5G signals are going to give you cancer.
Right.
And that actually,
he's on message,
but
you're right.
They don't have him on anything because the public agrees with him. So in a sense, what they're doing right now could be backfiring, but it's early enough to where the press always comes out the beginning, pre-primary or an early primary, and they earn your trust by presenting the candidates in a way that's not as abusive as it will be later.
Right. And yet they still can't help themselves, right? Like they don't even ask him about any of his policies. All they ask is, you're going to be a spoiler. And how is that going to affect our democracy?
Right. It's just like they did on the right, you know, will you endorse the candidate who wins? You know, they got their gotcha question. That's just like, nobody gives a fuck.
Yeah.
On some of those questions, but.
All right, let's get on. Let's move it.
Move it.
Got to move it.
Like to move it.
Yeah, baby.
Are you lagging or is it my computer?
Somebody said they think I'm on dial-up tonight, so it's probably me.
You know what it might be is we really overdid it with all of our graphics and videos. So we have a bunch also like that we share from our computer, and it might just be, you know, really
extra burden,
too much for this StreamYard. With timeline cleanse, right?
Yeah. And you know what? Next week, I'm going to hook up the Cat 5 cable and run directly and not have Wi-Fi. So I'll see if that makes a difference.
All right. I'm going to show my timeline cleanse. You ready?
Hi. Yeah. I was just calling to find out, what do good boys get? Oh, they get treats and biscuits? Oh my gosh, they get cookies? Good boys get cookies? Do they go potty? Oh, okay. And then we go to the park for a walk? Oh my gosh. Wow, the dog park? Oh, but then they need a bath and have to get their nails done.
That's good. I'll give you some credit on that one.
Thank you. Pat thinks mine are too wholesome, so sorry. That did feed into the wholesome one, but
that was still wholesome.
That was still wholesome. I know, but I'm glad that you liked
wholesome.
it anyway. Thank you. It was. It just made me laugh. All right, spin it. Spin it.
Where's our wheel? Okay, there we go.
Yeah, baby.
There it is.
Oh, that's funny. All right, balls and strikes. This is where we talk about our horrendous economy, but also about the hope on the other side of it, our only hope. Let us just...
Balls? No, strikes.
That's the strikes. There you go. Balls. Grateful to Branko March-Teach for reminding people that the reason that people feel negative about Biden's economy, which he wants to run on Bidenomics, is because there's not a lot to feel good about. If we were to believe the pundits, these people are all delusional. Their lack of savings, inability to afford food or healthcare, feelings of financial stress, or even experience of being thrown out of their homes, they've simply made it all up because a Democrat is in the White House. As always, rather than pushing the president to do more to protect working Americans and take on corporate greed, and thereby giving them an actual stake in the election result, the Democratic machine has decided instead to blame the ignorant masses for not realizing how great their leader is, preemptively absolving themselves of any blame for what happens next. And, you know, here's CNN's favorite billionaire.
We did get a thread question from Professor Peacock. He goes, I'd like to see you explore why people think the economy is bad when the economic data says otherwise. You saw those poll numbers. People think it's bad.
I don't have an explanation for why people think it's bad, because objectively it is good. It's hard to imagine it could be much better. It truly is. I mean, yes, inflation could be lower, but unemployment could hardly be lower. The economy, our economy is growing. Our GDP is growing. Interest rates, were ratcheted up quickly beginning in March of 2021 and 2022. I would have thought, frankly, that would slow the economy down a lot faster and further than it has, which just goes to prove it takes a long time for higher interest rates to work their way into the economy. But, bankruptcies are not, exploding left and right. The economy is still growing. I don't know. Looks pretty good to me.
Do you think there's an element, people just like being unhappy?
People like being unhappy about a lot of things in America right now, and unfortunately. And I think, when, say, Mitch McConnell says his goal is to make sure Barack Obama doesn't have a second term, when he says, I'm not going to allow a Supreme Court justice to be nominated that should have been nominated by Barack Obama, when Donald Trump says, he won the election when he lost the election, I mean, I think people are just in a foul mood, so nobody wants to give Joe Biden credit for what is really a remarkable situation with the economy.
You think he deserves credit?
Absolutely he deserves credit.
Why don't people give him credit?
Well, I don't know. That's the American psyche right now. We're in a bad sort of mood about everything, about our leaders, about our institutions. But objectively speaking, I can't imagine. I would have thought the economy would be, I wasn't predicting it, but I could understand why people were predicting that the economy would be troubled right now. Again, you can't have zero interest rates for 13 years and then ratchet up interest rates as quickly as the Fed has done. By the way, the Fed should now pause based on this latest number today. I don't know if they will. But look, you could not have asked for a better situation than exists right now.
That's the guy who said if Bernie were the nominee, he would probably have to vote for Trump in 2020.
Yeah. First off, I can't get over how he looks like a spray tanned asshole. Like he looks like an asshole. Like his lips literally look like an asshole. Those little white lips, that spray tan face. But this guy's a big piece of shit. He's like, unemployment's low. I can't imagine it be lower. He wants it to be lower.
Yeah.
He doesn't feel the suffering at all. And it's all a big fucking joke. It's all vibes. So if you're homeless, it's vibes. If you're not getting paid as much as you were relative to the cost of living, it's just vibes, you know?
Yeah. I mean, they never talk about, well, the fact that 70% of the country feels like they are in dire straits economically. People can't afford to buy homes. They can't afford rent. We have more people living on the streets than ever. Medical debt is, I think, what is that? Our biggest debt. As both political parties have colluded to erase healthcare from the discourse, medical debt is now the largest form of consumer debt in America. 60% of that medical debt is incurred by people who already have health insurance. Thanks, Obama. Yeah, there's just absolutely no, it doesn't matter if people's salaries go up, if the cost of living goes up even more. You can't just look at the hard numbers. You have to look at them in relationship to their ability to purchase. And it's just a phenomenal disregard of what's actually happening. And they're just going to keep browbeating people with some numbers about how the economy is doing and the GDP, and not try to help people at all. There's not a single policy that they're pushing to try to relate to the necessities of the people they're hoping to vote for them.
Well, it's because they can fall back on economic data, because economic data, as we measure it, does not affect quality of life of its citizens. It's entirely unrelated to that. It doesn't have to do with, well, how many of your citizens have full health care? How many of your citizens are owning houses versus renting places? How many citizens are eating every day? None of that is factored into how well the economy is doing. And when you have income inequality growing, obviously people are going to not support the current administration. You can't just tell them they should feel good about it when those day-to-day things are getting worse for a lot of people.
And when we see the exorbitant amount of money that we just keep shuffling off to war, I think that is a real reminder that we never ask how we're going to pay for that. Healthcare, how are you going to pay for it? Living wage. Now they're saying that here are all the people that come out. Higher minimum wages may increase homelessness. I don't know. Sure. Go fuck yourself, Megan McArdle. Seriously. I mean, and they're pushing this also. The work from home illusion fades. It's not more productive than being in an office after all. We all know why they're pushing that, because we're about to see an enormous collapse of office building real estate. $800 billion, they're thinking, will be wiped out from the value of office buildings.
Right. And obviously, who does that affect? It doesn't affect us. It affects the guys like the guy that was just on TV.
Exactly. Get back to work. Which is why now they're saying, with COVID, there's just been one piece after another. It's just lies, remote work is bringing people heart problems and blood clot issues because they're just sitting at home. But, when you're in an office, you sit at the office. When you commute an hour or more each way, that kind of sitting doesn't matter. It's like the levels of deception.
Traffic deaths are one of the biggest killers in the country.
Right.
So you're driving to work.
You can focus on any of that stuff. Yeah. This is an interesting development. Hospitals in the nation's largest for-profit chain have pressed staff to persuade families of ailing patients to initiate end-of-life care, physicians say, in an effort to reduce in-hospital mortality rates and free up hospital beds more quickly. Here are the real death panels. Okay. Luckily, in spite of all the money being spent to try to crush unions, there is a very clear correlation between union membership and income. And as union membership has gone down, unfortunately, the share of the income going to the top 10% has gone up because workers don't have protections. I think that we are on the cusp of something I'm hoping really big. Right now, we've got a hot labor summer from one of my favorite labor reporters, Stephen Greenhouse. Over 10,000 LA hotel workers went on strike. So have 11,000 TV and movie writers and 160,000 actors. The UAW could strike Detroit's automakers. And the biggest of all, 340,000 Teamsters might strike UPS. Could be big.
Amen.
Could be big.
And we got solidarity across the board. And this is the key. This is how we get everyone involved in this.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was so actors, writers, UPS workers, Teamsters all came out today, downtown LA, packed house at UPS practice strike this morning in Los Angeles. 340,000 UPS workers are preparing to walk off the job when their union contract officially expires July 31st. It'll be one of the largest labor actions in history. So that could be huge. Now, yeah.
Well, we really do have power. And I think the unemployment rate is a big part of it because they want unemployment rate to be high so that we're all so desperately needing jobs. But they killed off a lot of people with COVID. And they're going to continue having a worker shortage in a lot of industries because of COVID. So we can get out there and push this issue. They've raised the interest rates off, 5% or whatever in record chunks, and it hasn't reduced the unemployment. I mean, it hasn't increased unemployment like they hoped. So we have power, and we're seeing more and more strikes work and get positive contracts for the employees. So they're in a lot of trouble because people are out there and they're saying, you know what, my job isn't everything. I don't have health care. I don't have a living wage as it is.
Right. My retirement's been depleted. I can't afford a house. Okay, so here are some numbers. I'm just going to focus on SAG right now because their union, our union, my union, just started Friday. So here is the cost of SAG-AFTRA DGA, that's Directors Guild, Writers Guild contracts. This is from the Hollywood Reporter. Annual cost of SAG-AFTRA DGA WGA contracts may be $450 to $600 million a year, Moody's estimates. Okay, they are putting this definitely. The firm's debt analyst, Neil Begley, adds that we believe this standstill could be a relatively long strike with the stakes being larger than they have been in quite a while, right? So this is really from the perspective of CEOs. Look at how much it would cost. I don't know. The top Hollywood exec made almost $500 million in the last 5 years, 384 times as much as the average writer. David Zaslav, that's the guy, $498 million. Ari Emanuel, $346 million. Reed Hastings, $209. Bob Iger, unrealistically, $195 million. And Ted Sarandos, $192 million. Meanwhile, average screenwriter pay has dropped by 14% in those 5 years.
Yeah. I kind of want to show Ron Perlman speaking. Should we show that clip?
Let's show it.
And look, I got to add the caveat that he was kind of a shit lib. He's very anti-Bernie, pro
Hillary,
corporate Dem, but he's on the right side of this one, whether he's acting or not. So here's Ron Perlman.
One thing before I get off this. The motherfucker who said we're going to keep this thing going until people start losing their houses and their apartments. Listen to me, motherfucker. There's a lot of ways to lose your house. Some of it is financial, some of it is karma, and some of it is just figuring out who the fuck said that. And we know who said that. And where he fucking lives. There's a lot of ways to lose your house. You wish that on people. You wish that families starve while you're making $27 fucking million a year for creating nothing. Be careful, motherfucker. Be really careful. Because that's the kind of shit that stirs shit up. Peace out.
Dude, Pat, what's happening?
I'm not touching anything.
I'm not either. We're having a big StreamYard moment here.
It shows that we're on screen according to my buttons, but I'm not seeing us.
My goodness, what are we gonna do? This is crazy.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
You got it.
That was user error. That was us. That was me.
Really? All right.
I hit the button that shows full screen video, so it wouldn't put us on screen.
Oh, got it. Okay. So that brings up so much because he was kind of awful, as many big actors were during the 2 Bernie runs. And I have seen a lot of response on Twitter from people who felt that. I mean, I was one of them. A lot of people felt their constant sort of deriding of our hopes and dreams and just grow up kind of deal and, put your big boy pants on. And now that it affects their industry, somehow they are radicalized. I am happy that some of these people are becoming radicalized. The runs, that's funny. I'm happy that that's happening. I really hope that they take this and move forward and take the same energy to all of the working class, not just the people in the bubbles where they exist, because that kind of hypocrisy is really going to destroy the solidarity that we're all hoping exists. So good that he speaks this way. He certainly doesn't have to speak this way. He's made tons of money. He's doing it for the people who are, either we're struggling or just like kind of the working class actors whose names nobody knows, or writers whose names people don't know. So I really appreciate that, but I hope it continues, because there's a lot more than just, it's the whole nation that needs this sort of energy, right, not just in his one area.
Right. And even though, he has plenty of money, he is affected by the strike. You know what I mean? Like, right, the idea that, like he's on one side to get this resolved quickly to get back to work. Is he on the side of the UPS drivers? What does he say about the UPS drivers? So we need more. But I mean, I think the message that should resonate is there are a lot of ways to lose your house, and these people don't feel any consequence to any of their actions.
Right.
And when you are out there threatening, when you can just bold-faced say it, like, hey, this is our plan when people start losing their houses.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you probably saw the trees getting chopped in front of the strikers.
That's right. So we have this new person as our LA city controller, Kenneth Mejia. He's ran in the Green Party. He was a big Bernie supporter, and he's been in office now for a year. Our office is investigating the tree trimming that occurred outside Universal Studios, where workers, writers, and actors are exercising their right to picket. The trim trees are LA city managed street trees. So these are the before and after, knowing that it was going to be in the 90s today or this week, that this was the hottest week. They did that. They started construction to make it difficult so that people can't walk past. Universal is also where the first week of the writer's strike, 2 different strikers were hit by cars pulling onto the lot or pulling off of the lot. So, they're using all the tactics to try to break it up. We've got Bob Iger. I mean, again, like saying these things out loud. How many millions did we just see that he made last year? He says that the imminent strike, so this was a few days before it happened, very disturbing, will have very, very damaging effect on the whole business. It's the worst time in the world to add to that disruption. There is a level of expectation that they have that is just not realistic. He also said the unions have to be realistic, again, about the business environment and what this business can deliver, and that the strikes will cause huge collateral damage.
Notice how he doesn't mention any of the demands or anything that is unrealistic. What's unrealistic? What?
Being paid for your work.
Does the interviewer question them? No.
Never.
They just let them say, we're going to put all the onus on this problem getting solved for everyone that wants entertainment. It's all on them. Period.
Yep.
It's never like, hey, if you greedy bastards don't provide a living wage, we don't get entertainment.
Exactly. And here's ABC: strike by Hollywood actors, writers, causing collateral damage. Seems like they took it right from Bob Iger's mouth, right, to small business in Southern California. Here's the other thing that is worrisome, knowing who our labor president is. Hollywood CEOs and industry insiders seek federal mediation to help avert the strike, which, you know, they might also call them in if the strike goes on too long, because they're already losing hundreds of millions of dollars with this, because the writers, I think, started May 1st or 2nd. So that's already been 9 or 10, 11 weeks with no material. And the DGA, which is really gross, but they struck their deal without trying to coordinate with the heads of WGA or SAG. So they made their deal. And normally
who is the DGA?
The directors. So normally the directors, which is a much smaller group and a much more, you know, they are the ones who in the end have their name on the film as a film buy, right? Like they put it all together. So normally they have in the past coordinated a bit and gone first to try to set a tone for the writers and the actors of what the compensation will be. And they just struck their deal and moved forward. So I'm really curious to see what they think they'll be directing without a script and without actors. And, you know, I just did want to come back, and we talked about this a year ago, but, you know, there are people who, because a lot of these big actors who have their own shows or movies or whatever, they then end up straddling 2 or 3 of the guilds. So Tom Hanks, he's an actor. He's also a producer. I don't know if he's directed anything before. But when the actors were possibly going to strike in 2008 or 9, and the writers were striking, he came down on the side of the producers and basically tried to negotiate with the CEOs so everybody could get back to work. And so, you know, he makes more money as a producer than he does as an actor, right? So like even with Ron Perlman, I'm sure he's a producer on Sons of Anarchy or whatever he's on. I will, again, give him kudos for speaking out so strongly for the least of us in these unions.
Amen. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's important to get to what are they fighting for? What are the actors fighting for? You know, what are they're trying to hold on to profits from streaming services, for one. They're trying to prevent their likeness being owned forever by the studios. Right. And if you see all the AI digital stuff coming out, like I was just watching, what was it called? Invasion?
Yeah.
I think it's
Invasion. The Marvel.
It's a Marvel series with, oh God, what's his name? I forget his name already.
Samuel L. Jackson. Sorry.
Yes, I just got it too. Damn it. Samuel L. Jackson.
My brain fog.
But like the first 2 episodes, it's young Samuel L. Jackson who's clearly been CGI'd, and I don't even know if he showed up for that. So, you know, he might be getting paid for that because he's a big star and he added his name to this. But you're going to reach a point where these secondary actors aren't getting anything, and they got $200 3 weeks ago, 3 years ago, and they've been in 20 movies as a bit actor in the background.
Right. Secret Invasion. Thank you. Yeah, exactly. And one thing is, a lot of people have been complaining that when they showed up to work, sometimes background actors, so those are the extras, you know, you're paid just for the day. That's it. You don't get residuals. They showed up and they signed something because you show up to work and you have somebody saying, hey, do we sign this? We're going to scan you for your image just for, you know, in case we have to go back or whatever. And then they own your image in perpetuity and they can do anything they want with that image. And we've seen that they're Pat, you were called out for one of your deep fakes with Biden and his lizard tongue. But I mean, it's really very advanced right now. It's difficult sometimes to tell the difference between an artificially manufactured person and the real thing, especially with so much work on green screen and everything. So people are really frightened, between the streaming services where you're just paid the once and then they say, oh, we can't tell how many times. Residuals used to be the goal for every TV show. You wanted to hit 100 episodes because then it would go into syndication. And that's when the residuals really start kicking in, because as we all know, as an actor or a writer, you can work for, years to try to get one job. And then all people hear is like, oh, you made $50,000 for this. But like, you didn't work for 3 years before that, And so what you're hoping is that then the residuals kick in. But with the streaming services, that was all taken away because they said, oh, we don't know what the business model is going to be with these streaming services. Meanwhile, we see that the CEOs are making, gargantuan sums of money, and nobody is getting that those residuals to help keep them working in between, or keep them in house and with food in between their jobs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's why they're going to hold out tooth and nail on this thing to the end, because the longer they hold out and they put public pressure, and they hope to focus the public pressure on the actors and the writers instead of themselves, then maybe the actors and writers will get a small bump. But compared to the chunk that they increased by going to streaming services, they're never going to get that back in whatever new deal comes out. We already know that. Every new deal is fucking workers more and more. I mean, that's the whole capitalist model.
And it's also one of the reasons why some of your favorite Netflix shows that do really well don't ever go to a certain number of episodes.
Because they got to pay people more.
Right.
Like, we make more money on some other series.
Exactly. I did want to just give, and I don't even know this outlet, but Discussing Film, what a great way to frame this. Interview with the Vampire Season 2 has halted filming due to the studio's unwillingness to give actors fair pay and working conditions. That's the way it should be framed, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. What do you want to show? We got a couple videos.
Oh, I got one I want to show. This person, proud of this person.
I love the idea of forming rank and file committees. If the rank and file from all of the different unions banded together, a general strike, I mean, so many of us have been talking about that in this country. We see it happening, in Europe, it happens, right? We need that in this country. Our power is our labor. And if we all did a general strike and shut it down, we would bring this country to its knees. Rank and file from all unions across the board should get together, because as you are worldwide socialists, that is the answer. A worldwide socialist movement, absolutely.
Thank you. I went yesterday, and normally I've been on the strike line with Josh with writers at a smaller studio, which is closer to us, easy to park. But they wanted, especially because it's hot, there's not much shelter at the smaller studio, shade. They wanted us to come to like one of 4 places. So the parking is much more difficult. It was like 98 degrees. I was hot and sweaty. I finally got there. I was like worried I was late. And they, these 2 lovely men from the World Socialist website approached me, and we ended up talking for like 45 minutes. They were great. They were, and then they interviewed lots more people who were, striking past them. But my brain fog was heavily on for that one. But they were great. And I so appreciate the time they took. And they wrote a great article about the strike, and really tying it into a worldwide working class movement, which in order for it to succeed truly, it has to be that. So,
Well, amazing job. And as somebody mentioned in the chat, you said socialism. Socialism got mentioned. I mean, that doesn't happen anymore. Like, we don't hear any talks of socialism being a cure for things. But yeah, I mean, imagine your entertainment you can't watch because the evil TV people won't pay their people well. and your packages now come in 2 weeks instead of 2 days because evil UPS wouldn't pay their workers, or people are striking because Amazon is treating their employees like shit. And imagine a couple of these industries converging all at the same time when you're like, Jesus fucking Christ, you guys are getting rich, pay your fucking people so I can get my packages, so I can watch some TV when I get home from my shitty job.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's the hope. That's why we need solidarity across all the industries.
We really, really do. And again, to fight back against the framing, because, you know, even on the line yesterday, an older gentleman I was walking next to for a while said, you know, people are with us now, but when the restaurants start closing, when they can't watch a show that they want, they're just going to want us all to go back to work. And I think that is always the fear, especially because corporate media frames it that way. So it's just important to keep. However, I do think this is a different time. I feel like the Bernie's 2 runs, as sad as I am about the way they ended and his endorsement of Biden, I do think it's awakened people to what it means to be in a class war. I think for a long time, there were people just sort of like going along knowing that things felt crummy, but they couldn't articulate exactly why. And I think it's much clearer. I think as, you know, millennials and Gen Z and Gen X become more aware of this isn't just happening. It's not just like, oh, it just so happens that we're really poor, we can't afford a house and food's so expensive, but these wealthy people, and I just wish I could be like them. It's the plan. That's the strategy. That is the warfare that they are perpetrating on the rest of us. And I think it's becoming much clearer to people.
Yeah, we've got now generations of people being denied the same future their parents had systemically. Yeah. And it's really something that these younger people are acutely aware of. And so, you know, kudos to Bernie for waking that up a lot in people here, but it's happening all across the world because capitalism is how our governments are run, and neoliberalism rules in every big country. So, you know, we're seeing a lot of change, and hopefully we don't stop that and we amplify it and take it somewhere, because we know we can't wait for it to turn into legislation magically by electing a couple more Democrats or something.
Yeah. And nothing's ever changed just by voting, like ever. You know, they try to whitewash it, like we saw last week with Anna Kasparian talking about how, the civil rights movement was this peaceful protesting movement, like, or, you know, gay rights, Stonewall, like it never happens. You know, we fought a war to end slavery. And even though obviously it's not ended entirely, and there are systems that are in place that are subjugating whole groups of people continuously for 400 years. But like, even that, like, you didn't vote that out. Nothing happens just that way. We have to continue the pressure. It's imperative.
Amen.
All right. Do we have a timeline cleanse? We're at 6:30. What do you think? Oh, wait, we need to show go ahead.
No, go for it.
Well, I was going to say we need to show a couple timeline cleanses or something fun, but also our one good thing. We're going to try, because we've realized the world is in such a sorry state. And even though we come here and want to drink and talk about it and still find joy, sometimes by the time we end, we're all just sort of like, oh my God, where's the hope? It's feeling pretty bleak. That if we had a definite segment to end every episode of one good thing, so we can all go off on a little bit of a high note and hope, that's how we should move forward. So are we there? Are we at the end? Yeah,
I think we should go there, but I think first I want to show a wholesome clip of a kid, because I pulled this just for you, because I know how much you love wholesome little clips.
I do.
Here. Can I bring him into your house?
No, you're gonna leave him in here.
No, you're gonna cook him.
No.
I love it. Sorry,
that's pretty funny.
Vegetarians.
That's pretty funny. Did not think it was going to go that way.
Yeah. Okay. So should we end on our one good thing?
Yeah, let's end on our one good thing, and a little more alcohol.
Fair enough.
we all know what that's in reference to. One good thing.
That was my cheery one good thing intro. But we
one
actually
good
have a
thing.
video of a 104-year-old striker spitting some words of wisdom, and I think that's probably the better way to go out.
The young age of 104 is out here on our picture.
Hello, Effie. Brown, white. Are we going to let the company divide us? No! Straight, women, men, LGBT. Are we going to let the company divide us? No! One last point. It's very good for your health to stay active with your fellow workers at any age, because as long as we're up against the system that's unfair to its roots, we're going to have to stay together or be crushed, and we are on the winning side.
That's awesome.
Love her.
Hero. 104.
God bless her.
God bless. Amen. All right, everyone. Have a great week. I'll see you on the strike lines. Be there early tomorrow. Thank you for joining us. I saw so many amazing comments. I'm sorry we didn't get to all of them, but really appreciate all of you weighing in and joining us every week.
Absolutely.
Keep punching up.
Cheers.
Cheers.